Hello. If you're overweight or struggling to maintain your weight, you only have one problem. It's overeating. Hi, I'm Dr. Stephanie Fine, and I am here to help you keep the weight off and lose it too. That's what we talk about here, maintaining weight loss, losing weight, all things that can help you feel great in your body and eat the way I think that we're supposed to eat. But getting there is part of the issue. And overeating is literally the number one problem. If we only ate what our body needed, we would literally be the natural weight we're supposed to be, which in general is a thin weight. And the problem that we have, the reason we overeat is it's a habit. There's many reasons we overeat, but our culture is set up for it. First of all, there is 24/7 available, highly palatable foods. Highly palatable foods are things that have sugar, fat, candies and cookies and breads and salty things and all that sort of stuff. That's highly palatable foods. It's foods that have concentrated amounts of things, salty, sweet. They don't occur naturally in the universe, right? So you don't see a Snickers bar growing out of the ground. The things that do grow out of the ground and live from things grown out of the ground are tasty, but not nearly as tasty, meaning that they light up things in your brain, as the processed foods. So we've manufactured foods that literally make us want to overeat them. And they do it on purpose. They're not even they're not even trying to hide the fact. So the fact that there's highly palatable foods available all the time is one problem. And the other problem is our culture, where we celebrate with food, we mourn with food, we do business with food, we entertain with food. We've decided to do so many things around food where it wasn't necessarily food as fuel, but we've created a system that does this. So overeating is a natural consequence of this culture and availability. So it's kind of like I'm saying it's not your fault because we're just designed for it. So the first thing I want you to know is that you can change overeating behaviors. 100%. Some of it is knowing what I just talked about, the highly palatable foods versus the stuff that grows from the ground, and whole foods, and the culture that we don't have to entertain. We don't have to do everything around food. We can do it other ways. We can connect at parties instead of having to eat. We can go for walks with our friends instead of having to go to lunch, these sorts of things. So first, besides knowing that, the second thing is to know where we're vulnerable to overeating. And I have a list of a couple things that I wanted to talk to you about. When you notice that you're overeating, we can then start to do something about it. So that's step one, is noticing the awareness of overeating. Okay, so number one is meals. Usually dinner is the culprit. And we had some great discussions in the Facebook group, Maintenance University Facebook group. If you go to maintenanceuniversityfacebookgroup.com, you can join right there. We talked about when people overeat. And dinner is certainly one of the places, because a lot of times, especially depending on how your day goes, you work hard, you may skip meals, and by the time you get to dinner, you're so just want to relax, and we've associated eating with a lot of that. So dinner is a place that we can really overeat. Your stomach's the size of your fist, and so any more food than that, even chewed up, is a lot of food, too much food. You could actually say that that's overeating. And also your body will tell you when you've had too much food. You want to get to satisfied, not full. So at the end of a meal, we shouldn't be unbuttoning our pants. We've gone too far. So meals are super easy to do. Lunch is not as much, but it certainly can happen. But dinner is a place. So noticing that, and just one quick way of doing that is to take less. If you notice that a certain amount of food one day is made you feel a little more full, then the next day take a little less and see where you end up. So meals. Any snacking. So it can be considered overeating if you're snacking when you're not hungry. That's it. If you're hungry, that's a different thing. And I would still always recommend a whole food rather than a processed food for snacking. So I know there's lots of bars out there Sometimes they're important to get protein in you, but a lot of times fruit or vegetable or straight protein is a good thing to have as a snack if you're really hungry. You certainly can have your meals timed so that you don't get super hungry, so you're not having lots of hours in between meals. That could work too. But so place is snacking when you're not hungry, meals if you eat past satisfied. Any eating after dinner. I bet that's a big one for a lot of us. That's a major one, right? And the reason for that is you've just had a meal. So you're not hungry. You're really not hungry. Unless it's been 6 hours, 5 hours after, and then you may be in fact hungry, but you're going to sleep. So think about that. But any eating after dinner can be considered overeating. And if that was cut out, you would drop weight. Restaurants. So their job is to make money. So they want to give you value, which is more food for your money. It costs them very little to give you a couple extra ounces, but it looks to you like a lot, and so it feels like you're getting value. So those portions are out of control. Most of restaurant portions are overeating if you finish the whole plate. And they've actually done studies to show that restaurant portions have gotten much bigger over the decades. So in the 50s and 60s, the portions were much smaller. So it really, really makes a difference. If you finish your plate at a restaurant, you're likely overeating. And parties. That's another place we usually overeat. There's usually foods that we're interested in or that we don't have a lot of exposure to, but also, and this is a big one, with parties, you could feel uncomfortable. I know, I'm an introvert, so parties are not always my favorite. And if I'm feeling uncomfortable, and especially if you're alone, going to the table is brilliant in our minds, right? Because we are doing something as opposed to just standing around. So parties are a place to look out for overeating, eating when you're not hungry because you're sort of medicating the restlessness or the shyness or whatever it is, the discomfort. And family get-togethers are similar. Now, we're not doing a lot of parties and family get-togethers now, but it's something to look out for. Sometimes there's people in family gatherings that we're not happy to see, or they always make a fuss, or there's something going on. And we medicate ourselves with food instead of dealing more directly with it. So those are places that you can notice where there's overeating. And quickly, couple things. So knowing your satisfaction level can very much help. Changing your behaviors around that. And the first thing to do is to notice, what am I feeling? And I'm eating instead of dealing with it directly. After dinner is usually boredom, so an activity would help there. At parties, it could be discomfort, so having a plan to meet a friend there, or decide that I'm going to meet 3 different people, or I'm not going to go. Like dealing with it. So dealing with the emotions is the ultimate way of not overeating. But the first step is noticing all the places that you do. That's it for this week. I will be back next week. I'm sending you lots of love. Mwah. Goodbye.